I ran every single game that you could possibly think of on 4K on this PC, which only cost me around $670. And in this video, I'm gonna teach you how you can do it yourself. Starting off with the CPU, which I picked the Ryzen 5 5500. It has 6 cores, 12 threads. It is a very good CPU so far, although if you could pick the Ryzen 5 5600, it would be better, but there isn't much of a difference. And if you can't find the Ryzen 5 5500, if you want to go cheaper, you can always pick the Ryzen 5 3600. It's also a very solid CPU. Next up, we got the motherboard, and for this build, I picked the ASRock B450M Steel Legend, which is a really good motherboard, kind of. I do have some complaints about it. It does have 4 RAM slots and it does deliver a decent amount of power to the CPU, but the M.2 slot is only a Gen 3 and the second M.2 slot is a SATA M.2. So there are some complaints that I have about this motherboard, but overall it is a good motherboard. It looks fine. It has tons of useless RGBs that are only for decoration. I don't know why they decided to put all these RGBs just for decoration and not use some of them for debug issues. I just don't know why ASRock did that. However, it is a decent motherboard. For the RAM, I got 4 sticks of DDR4, 4GB. It is better to go with 2 8GB sticks, but I found those 4 sticks for very cheap compared to where I live, and so I picked them up. And the difference between 4 sticks and 2 sticks of 8 isn't really that massive. However, the frequency was very low for what I wanted. It was only around 2133, so I overclocked it to 3000, and it was surprisingly stable. I didn't face any blue screen issues or anything like that, and overall I do recommend that you overclock your RAM if you can. For the power supply, I got the Sigatip BN750 watts. It is a lovely power supply. It even comes with the NVIDIA proprietary 12-pin connector in case you want to put, I don't know, an RTX 4070 or something. I don't know. However, it is useful, and this power supply will give us plenty of room to upgrade this build in the future. For the storage, which many people didn't like in the comments of my Instagram, I put a 256GB SSD with 500GB HDD. I do recommend that you go with a 1TB SSD. Overall, storage is a personal choice and it's up to you to pick whatever you like. For the case, I got this Chinese alien looking case, and honestly, I didn't really like it myself. Building in it was kind of hard, but if you love open cases and if you like having plenty of airflow, this is a really good case considering that it has so many places to install fans. However, keep in mind, if you buy such a case, you are gonna need to clean it more regularly considering that it's very open, and you can even change the RAM from the top opening for the fans. You can just kind of stick your hand in it and change the RAM. Like, that is how absurdly open this case is. For the final star of the show, which is the BioStar RX 6800. This GPU is an absolute monster, and if you don't believe me, just wait until the benchmarks. However, this GPU comes with 16GB of VRAM, which is more than enough for any game that you could possibly think of. And now, enough about the build, let's get to the benchmarks. The first game that we have for today is Dying Light the Beast. On 4K high settings on FSR quality, we're getting around 45 frames, which is insane. Keep in mind, this is a heavy game. This is one of the newest kind of 2025 games, and so this is great performance for a PC that only costs $670, and I'm loving it so far. GTA V Enhanced Edition on 4K maximum ray tracing with FSR quality, we're getting around 45 FPS, and yes, it's not that many, but this is on 4K on FSR quality. If you lower the settings a little bit, like I did here, I lowered the resolution to 2K and I cranked down the settings to very high with FSR quality, and we're getting 100 frames per second. Lovely experience, no drops, no lags whatsoever, and overall this GPU is still a monster. God of War Ragnarok on 4K ultra settings on FSR quality, we're getting around 50 FPS. The funny thing is, this PC can run games on 4K, but a 4K monitor would probably cost you half the price of this PC, which is kind of funny. STALKER 2 on 4K medium FSR quality, we're getting 40 FPS. And let me tell you, this is one of the heaviest games to ever exist. So getting 40 FPS on this game is absolutely nuts. This is insane performance for Stalker 2, especially considering that we're playing on 4K medium, not even low. Silent Hill 2 Remake. On 4K high settings on FSR quality, we're getting around 40 FPS. I just don't know what more could you possibly need. Like, you can very easily play any game that you desire on high refresh rate on 2K with no issues at all. And next up, for funsies, Minecraft, we're playing on 4K with 12 render distance and we're getting 400 plus FPS, but it does depend on the mods you have, on the shaders you put, and it also depends where you're looking. Like here I was looking at the sky and I was getting around 1000 FPS. Pragmata, which is a very recent game, however it is very well optimized, so it doesn't really require that good of a PC. However, we're playing on 4K high settings on ultra quality FSR and we're getting around 45 FPS. So if you crank down the settings to 2K, you can very easily get high refresh rate and enjoy a smoother experience. Alan Wake 2 on 4K high settings on FSR quality, we're getting 40 FPS as an average. I just don't know what to say. This is crazy good performance for the price, and I absolutely love this build so far, and I love this GPU, and I think it's a very great choice for the price. The only thing that I would change if I could would be the CPU. I would choose a Ryzen 5 5600 instead of a 5500, and the reason for that is in Counter-Strike 2, which is a more CPU heavy game, we're still getting decent FPS. We're getting more than 100 for most of the times. However, if we had the 5600, we would probably get more FPS in such a game that is more CPU heavy. CyberPunk 2077 on 4K ultra settings FSR quality, we're getting more than 30 to 40 FPS. Like, this is peak performance. You just don't really need anything more than that. I just don't understand why people go and buy like a 4080 or a 4090. You just don't really need that much of an expensive GPU. Doom the Dark Ages, which is also a very recent and heavy game, on 4K high settings on upscaling dynamic, we're getting more than 50 FPS. However, if I were you and I bought a similar build, I would crank down the settings to 2K or maybe change it to medium or low, considering that Doom is a very fast-paced game, and I do recommend that you crank down the settings a little bit. Ghost of Tsushima on 4K very high with FSR quality, we're getting 60 FPS. Keep in mind, Ghost of Tsushima is a very well optimized game, and you can easily turn on frame generation and you're barely gonna notice a difference, and you're gonna get double the frames, or you can just crank down the settings a little bit and get more frames. Horizon Forbidden West on 4K high FSR quality, we're getting more than 45 FPS. On an average, it's 40 FPS. It is a lovely experience, buttery smooth, no issues at all. And we can move on to the next game. Red Dead Redemption 2 on 4K Ultra, no FSR, no upscaling, we're getting 45 FPS on an average. This PC is absolutely crazy, and I absolutely love it. I do recommend that you build a similar PC, and you might say that it's an AM4, so it's gonna be hard to upgrade, sure, but it will last you at least 5 years. And in 5 years, you're probably gonna make enough money to buy an entire new PC, so I still consider it a great value for the money that you're paying. Subscribe if you like this video. See you in the next one.